Winter is almost officially over, and that means that spring is upon us, and with that comes some of the most anticipated games of the season. Hi, I'm Jordan, and today I'd like to show you some of the most interesting games of March of 2018. Fear Effect is one of those gems from the PS1 era that amassed a cult following over the years. Upon release, this action-adventure, Resident Evil-inspired title caught the gamers' attention with its unique visual style and a well-scripted story, while the next installment in the series, Fear Effect II Retro Helix, made headlines due to a lesbian romance that was part of the main plot. Even though the series might seem forgotten nearly 2 decades since, some fans desperately wanted more, and so Fear Effect Sedna got financed on Kickstarter. The next game in the series will be a real-time tactical RPG with an isometric view and some puzzles that, just like its predecessor, would let us venture to a dark near-future cyberpunk setting. Fans might be worried about the gameplay change and that it's being developed by a lesser-known studio, Sanchi, but judging from the fact that the game is being published by Square Enix, it looks like we're getting at least a decent product. If you're a fan of games like the new Shadowrun or Transistor, or a fan of cyberpunk in general, you might want to give this one a chance. Warhammer Vermintide was one of 2015's so-called sleeper hits. The game seemingly came out of nowhere and quickly amassed a loyal fanbase. In theory, a mix of a universe originating from tabletop games and a gameplay type like in Left 4 Dead 2 might seem absurd, but in practice, it turned out great. Fighting Skaven, or the titular Vermin if you will cooperate in teams of 4 and choose from 5 different heroes and careers, which serve as character classes of sorts. Apart from that, we'll also do some crafting and undertake the so-called heroic deeds, a new addition to the series which drastically changes our tasks and offers additional challenges within the missions we play. All in all, it seems as if the developer Fat Shark isn't trying too hard to revolutionize the formula, but as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So at the very least, we can hope that the new Vermintide will be as good, if not even better, than the first game. Burnout was one of the most beloved racing series of the early 2000s that, above all else, focused on a spectacular vehicle destruction and a nice soundtrack. Sadly though, the series has died after its developer, Criterion Games, have been bought out by EA and were tasked with making Need for Speed games or things like Battlefront 2 single-player campaign. Nearly 10 years after its initial release, the last Burnout game, Burnout Paradise, is getting a remaster that will include all of the released DLC, 4K and 60 frames per second support on stronger consoles, and that's pretty much it. Nevertheless, the game has aged quite well and is still a lot of fun, especially if you take into account that racing games focused on tricks and takedowns aren't that common nowadays.
What's your plan?
It's my plan, and I decide what goes down. You got that? Yeah.
A Way Out is an intriguing game to say the least, not only because it's a cinematic action-adventure that we'll only be able to complete in co-op, but also because of its interesting developer, Hazelight Studios, led by Joseph Fares, whose drunken appearance at last year's Video Game Awards was one of the highlights of the entire event. Hazelight, which is working with EA, previously gave us the critically acclaimed Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which told a touching story and experimented with how we experience games. One of the ways to go through the story was by simultaneously sharing a controller with a second player, and A Way Out seems to be its spiritual successor of sorts. In the upcoming title, we'll follow a story of 2 convicts, Leo and Vincent, who try to escape from a prison and get their old lives back while cooperating and solving puzzles. What's interesting is that 2 ex-cons won't always share the screen, and often at times, when one is in a cutscene, the other will be doing something entirely different. Personally, this is the release I'm looking forward to the most.
They're here for you. We need to leave.
For me.
Can't you see? It's a coup!
2013's Ni no Kuni was one of the most beautiful and touching games that came out that year, and the sequel looks to be no different. Ni no Kuni II, The Revenant Kingdom, produced by JRP Legends at Level 5, won't be greatly tied to the predecessor story-wise, and thus won't require prior knowledge going into the game. and the Revenant kingdom will follow a story of a dethroned young king who, while trying to get his kingdom back, will go on an epic quest and a journey of self-discovery. Gameplay-wise, we can expect a blend of dungeon crawling, questing, looting, crafting, and some tactical elements, in which we'll lead our ever-growing army. If you're a fan of Studio Ghibli films and have a couple dozen of hours to spare, the new Ni no Kuni might be just for you.
God will never let you take me.
Next, we have Far Cry 5, probably the biggest release of the month. After giving the franchise some time to breathe, Ubisoft will once again offer us a crazy first-person sandbox in which we'll take on a menacing villain. This time around, a leader of a religious cult in a small town in the state of Montana. Far Cry 5 is not only interesting because of the vast departure from the themes of the previous games, which were quite exotic, but also because of the controversy it garnered after the initial announcement. According to some fans, the game was anti-religious and anti-white, featuring an intentional similarity between the game's enemies and Donald Trump supporters. I don't know about you, but since we've been killing all sorts of cultists and bad people of different races in games for a while now, I failed to see a political or racial statement here. If, however, Ubisoft intentionally wanted to make a social commentary, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with games being topical or thought-provoking. As always, gameplay-wise, you can expect some driving, a lot of shooting, optional co-op, crafting, and various side quests, while the latter seem to be much crazier and meta this time around, just like Ubisoft's previous Watch Dogs 2. No matter if Far Cry 5 is groundbreaking or more of the same, it certainly will be something to talk about, and most importantly, something to pour dozens of hours into. Agony, the last game set to be released this month, is a Kickstarter-financed survival horror developed by Madmind, a new Polish indie studio which is made up of people who used to work on The Witcher and Sniper Ghost Warrior games. In Agony, we are sent directly to hell and control a certain historical figure with amnesia who tries to survive and regain his memory. In doing so, as we don't have any combat abilities, we'll have to take control of other damned souls and various grotesque demons. No matter if the gameplay is good or not, what caught our attention above all else was the unique and drastic vision of hell and its demonic inhabitants, as the game is shaping up to be quite an audiovisual feast. And that's it for our most anticipated releases of March of 2018. If we missed something, let us know and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.